Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, even though he's not in attendance today, I appreciate him giving me the opportunity to appear to the galley. Thank you for your pondering of the evidence we presented here today. And Madam Secretary, I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Couple of concerns here. There was a time back during the second term of President Nixon, a little incident you might be aware of called Watergate, the investigation there. And I just want to get to that because I'm wondering, when you got dismissed from the Watergate investigation panel by the lead of the investigation, do you remember, actually, I'll read it to you. He stated that you were unethical, that you attempted to subvert the Constitution, you had no regard, and inexplicably, you thought it was okay to deny the president legal representation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but habeas corpus is one of the essential fibers of our democratic republic. And you thought it was okay for him not to have legal representation. So, I want to get to something here. You think that it's okay to subvert the Constitution when it suits you. How then do you attempt to portray this mockery, to work this over, honestly, on the American people, that you somehow, in spite of your disregard for the founding documents of this country, have the gall, I guess, I can't even really put it into the words. You have the gall to then seek the highest office of the land? Well, what type of subversion might you attempt there, Madam Secretary? Now, I'm confused. And maybe nobody here today has brought this up. I mean, I'm really kind of wondering what my party's up to because, you know, President Clinton, your husband, you may recall, was impeached. And the Senate failed to convict him, not of sexual activity in the Oval Office. That wasn't the issue. But everyday Americans who lie under oath to a federal grand jury, Madam Secretary, you're an attorney. I'm sure you're aware that carries a mandatory 15 to 20-year federal prison sentence. Surely an attorney is well versed as you. But we'll move on from your husband. Let's talk about the fact that, well, he didn't have the dignity to resign over something that was far bigger, okay? In that he's working secret arms deals with the Chinese and receiving fellatio in the Oval Office, didn't have the dignity to resign. You failed to have any regard, as Hillary RODHAM, President Clinton, he wasn't even in the picture at that point. Now, you sit here and look at me and look around. I know you're disgusted right now. That's okay. So am I. And you think, again, it's right here. Your dismissal from the Watergate investigation that led to the resignation of President Nixon. They didn't think you were honest enough to be on the panel anymore that led to the resignation of the president. To me, that ought to be an automatic disqualifier from being president. If you can't be honest enough for the people that wanted to nail Richard Nixon, and I guarantee you there's not a person out here reading Time magazine that's going to vote for you that has any regard for President Nixon. So they hate President Nixon. They're loving the fact that he resigned and Gerald Ford pardoning him cost him the election. But President Nixon had the honor to resign at least and spare the country 2 more years of misery. And you got fired from that investigation that led to his resignation. They didn't think you had the character to continue. I'll remain. I understand that my time's up here, but just one final point for the galley here. Maybe somebody in this room, maybe a couple of the young people sitting in the back. No, I'm not talking to. No, I'm not talking to the media here. Back behind y'all, the real folks in this room. Maybe they'll understand how serious this is. And I know you're probably waiting to burst out again. I'm sure you're probably waiting to come out again with, well, what difference does it make? Well, it made a great deal of difference to the people in my family that campaigned for Richard Nixon, who did a lot of great things for this country. And in his downfall, the people that hated him so much to remove him from office, they didn't think you ought to be around anymore. I submit the remainder of my time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.